In this video, I'm going to talk about the use of for each loops with 2D arrays. So we've seen for each loops with arrays and array lists. Now we're going to apply them to 2D arrays. So in this program here, I have a 2D array of integers. It's a 5 by 5. And our regular for loops, I have two of them. The first one's going to populate the array with products of rows and columns like a multiplication table. And the second set of nested for loops are going to print it out. So this is our basic nested for loop structure. So I'll run the program so you can see it, compile it, and when you run it, you can see I get a 2D array printout of the contents of the array. So we can also use for each loops, as I mentioned, with 2D arrays. So let me comment out the for loop here, and then let's talk about how we can use a for each loop. And the basic idea is this. It's also a nested for loop or for each loop. The first or the outer for loop is going to extract a single row from the 2D array, and the inner for loop will run through that array and print every one of those numbers out. So outer for loop extracts an array, because if you recall, a 2D array is an array of arrays. So I'm going to grab an array first, then the inner for loop will go through it. So here's the structure. So for each, and I'm going to say int row, because I'm going to extract an entire row from the array first. So there's my outer for loop and outer for. And then with that row, I'm going to have my inner for loop. I'm going to say for each int, I'll call it num, in the row, which of course is a single dimension of 1D array. I'm then going to and inner for. I'm going to print out that actual integer. System.out.println num, and I'll add a space in here for that. And then after I print an entire row, then I'm going to print I should not have a line here, print a line so we go to the next row. So let's run this program. Let me compile it and run it. And you can see I have the same 2D structure. Now if you look at the two for loops side by side, here's our regular for loop, and here's our for each loop. You can see it's a lot more compact. We don't need to keep track of rows and columns for counters. We don't need to increment them with the plus plus. All we just need to do is have the same structure of the inner and outer for loop so we can process those numbers. So that's a simple example of how we can use for each loops with 2D arrays.